The dusty airfield at Camp Haven was alive with the hum of aircraft engines and the echo of soldiers' laughter. The sun was merciless, pouring heat onto the rows of steel barracks lined up like silent sentinels. What city are you watching from today? If this story resonated with you, hit subscribe for more real stories about extraordinary people. A young woman stepped off the transport truck, clutching a small duffel bag in her hand. Her uniform looked freshly pressed, too neat for this kind of place. Her name tag read, Old Raines. No one paid her much attention at first. Just another newcomer, or maybe a trainee sent to fill the kitchen or clerical post. She walked with quiet confidence, her boots sinking into the dust with purpose. But when she entered the main yard, a group of soldiers were sparring, rough, loud, and careless. One of them, a tall corporal with a shaved head, shouted, "Hey, rookie! You're not supposed to walk through here." Before she could answer, another soldier, a burly sergeant, swung his arm mockingly toward her, pretending to block her path. She dodged calmly. "Move aside," she said softly. The sergeant smirked. "Look who's giving orders now. You new here, sweetheart? Lost your way to the admin desk?" The men laughed. She stepped forward again, unflinching. "I said, move aside." The corporal didn't like her tone. He reached out and gave her shoulder a shove, light but disrespectful. What happened next happened fast. In a blur, the young woman grabbed his wrist, twisted it, and pulled him down with a swift move that sent him sprawling to the ground. Silence fell over the yard. The burly sergeant took a step forward, ready to react. But before he could move, a loud voice boomed across the yard. "What's going on here?" Everyone turned. A tall officer in a crisp uniform walked toward them, the base commander, Colonel Harris. The soldiers snapped to attention instantly. The young woman stood quietly, brushing dust off her sleeve. "Colonel Harris," one of the soldiers said quickly. "This recruit just—" "She's not a recruit," the colonel interrupted sharply. Then he turned toward the young woman and saluted. "Admiral Raines." "Welcome to Camp Haven?" The men froze. "Admiral?" Their faces drained of color. The young woman returned the salute slowly, her eyes calm and steady. "Thank you, Colonel. It's good to be here." The soldiers stood in stunned silence, realization sinking in. The rookie they mocked, the one they'd shoved, was their new commanding officer. As the awkward silence faded, Admiral Liana Raines walked past the stunned soldiers. Every step echoed like judgment. The men who had mocked her moments ago stood frozen, eyes wide with regret. Colonel Harris followed her inside the command building. "Ma'am, I apologize for what happened out there," he said quickly. "They didn't know." She raised a hand, stopping him mid-sentence. "They will learn," she said softly. Her tone wasn't angry, just tired. When they reached her new office, a modest room overlooking the training yard, she stood silently by the window. Outside, the same soldiers were still visible, lined up, uneasy. She could see guilt on their faces. "Discipline," she whispered. "That's all that keeps this place standing." Harris nodded. "Yes, ma'am. I'll brief them personally." She turned toward him. "No, I'll handle it myself. They'll hear from me tomorrow morning." After the colonel left, Liana finally sat down. Her hand trembled slightly as she opened a small locket hidden beneath her uniform. Inside was a tiny photo, a young man in uniform smiling, her brother, Captain Ethan Raines. He'd been stationed at this very base 2 years ago, and he never came home. She still remembered. The night she got the call, the base had been attacked during a training operation gone wrong. A fire, a failed evacuation, and a cover-up that left more questions than answers. Ethan's body was never found. It had taken her months to get permission to investigate. The military higher-ups had been silent, reluctant. But she fought, and now as Admiral, she had the authority to dig deeper. Her arrival at Camp Haven wasn't just for command. It was for answers. She clenched the locket tightly, her eyes glistening. "They think I'm here to lead," she murmured. "But I'm here to uncover the truth." Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. distant but heavy. Tomorrow, she would face those soldiers again, and this time they would learn who she truly was. Not just their superior, but a woman carrying the weight of loss, justice, and a secret mission no one yet understood. The next morning, the base gathered under the blazing sun. Every soldier stood in formation, boots lined in perfect rows. The air was tense. No one dared to whisper. Admiral Liana Raines walked to the front, her cap tucked under her arm. She moved with quiet authority, her presence commanding without effort. Colonel Harris stood beside her, saluting sharply. Camp Haven assembled and ready for inspection, Admiral. She nodded once. Then, with a steady voice, she began. Yesterday, I arrived here quietly. I didn't announce my title. I didn't demand salutes or attention. I simply wanted to see how this base truly works. Not on paper, not in reports, but in reality. The soldiers' faces were pale. The same ones who had mocked her the day before avoided her eyes. Discipline, she continued, is not about rank. It's about respect. About how you treat every person, regardless of what badge they wear. Her eyes swept over the crowd. What I saw yesterday tells me that this base has forgotten that. The corporal from before, the one she had thrown to the ground, stepped forward nervously. Ma'am, we didn't mean, she stopped him with a raised hand. Meaning is irrelevant, Corporal. Action defines a soldier. A silence followed, heavy as lead docked in. In a softer tone, she added, You'll have a chance to prove yourselves. Starting today, this base will undergo a full operational audit and retraining. A murmur rippled through the ranks. Colonel Harris frowned slightly. Ma'am, may I ask why an audit? Her gaze turned toward him, sharp and calm. Because 2 years ago, this base lost a man, Captain Ethan Raines, during a classified operation that went horribly wrong. The report was vague. The truth was buried. I intend to uncover what really happened. The entire formation stiffened. Some soldiers exchanged uneasy glances. The name had weight. Ethan Raines had been well-liked, one of the best officers they'd ever had. One young soldier finally spoke up, his voice trembling. Ma'am, you're his sister? She nodded slowly. Yes, and I will not rest until I find out why my brother never came home. A chill ran through the crowd. For the first time, the soldiers saw her not just as a high-ranking officer, but as a woman who had lost someone, standing here to fight for truth. She took a deep breath. You will cooperate fully with my investigation. No excuses. No lies. From today, Camp Haven is under my direct command. Then she turned to the corporal and the sergeant who had mocked her. And you two report to my office at 1800 hours. You're going to help me start digging. They both nodded quickly, eyes wide with shame and fear. As she walked away. Whispers began to spread through the ranks. The new admiral wasn't just strict, she was on a mission, and no one dared stand in her way. Evening fell over Camp Haven like a slow curtain of dusk. The sky turned a deep crimson, fading into violet as the sun sank behind the hangars. Inside the admiral's office, 2 nervous soldiers stood stiffly, the same corporal and sergeant who had mocked her just a day ago. Admiral Raines looked up from a stack of old mission files. Sit, she said, her tone even. They obeyed instantly, eyes fixed on the floor. You two were both stationed here 2 years ago, she began. You knew Captain Ethan Raines. The sergeant swallowed. Yes, ma'am. We did. Then tell me, she continued, voice calm but sharp, what really happened during Operation Ember? A long pause. The corporal shifted uncomfortably. Ma'am, the official report said there was a training fire. But that's not the whole truth. Raines leaned forward. Go on. The sergeant spoke next, quietly. It wasn't a fire from training. It was sabotage. Someone planted explosives in the east hangar, where the munitions were stored. Captain Raines was the first to notice something was wrong. He tried to evacuate the men, but he stopped, his voice cracking. But what? She pressed. He went back in, ma'am. There was a rookie trapped inside. He never came out. The room was silent, except for the ticking clock on the wall. Admiral Raines closed her eyes briefly. Her brother, her brave, foolish brother, had died saving another life. That part she already expected. But sabotage? That word changed everything. She opened her eyes again. Who was responsible? The corporal hesitated. We never found out, ma'am. The investigation was shut down after a week. They said it was an accident. But we heard rumors. Someone from the command staff back then was involved. Someone high up. Her expression hardened. Names. They looked at each other, then at her. Colonel Harris. The sergeant whispered. The words hit her like a blow. Harris, the man who had greeted her with such warmth, who had been by her side since she arrived. Her brother had once trusted him too. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly. You're dismissed. Not a word of this to anyone. When they left, she sat back in her chair, staring at the base map on the wall. The pieces began to connect too easily, too perfectly. The explosion, the rush report, the reassignment of officers. And now Harris's quiet resistance to her audit. She whispered under her breath, You were there that night, weren't you, Colonel? Outside, a storm was forming, wind sweeping through the flags. Lightning cracking in the distance. Inside, Admiral Raines' eyes burned with determination. If Harris was involved, she would expose him no matter the cost. The storm broke over Camp Haven before dawn. Lightning flashed across the horizon as rain hammered the barracks. Washing the dust from the ground, inside the command hall, Admiral Liana Raines stood alone, staring at the dimly lit portrait of fallen soldiers on the wall. Her brother's name, Captain Ethan Raines, was etched in the middle, cold and forgotten. Behind her, the heavy doors creaked open. Colonel Harris entered, his boots echoing against the tile. You wanted to see me, Admiral. She turned slowly. Her voice was calm but laced with steel. Yes. Sit down, Colonel. We need to talk about Operation Ember. He froze for a fraction of a second, just enough for her to notice. Then he forced a small smile. That was years ago, ma'am. A tragic accident. She stepped closer. Stop lying. His smile faded. I've read the sealed files. I've talked to the men. You were the commanding officer on duty that night. Harris's expression hardened. Careful, Admiral. You're treading on classified ground. I am the classification now, she said sharply. And I know someone sabotaged the munitions hangar. Someone who erased the surveillance data afterward. It was you, wasn't it? He looked at her for a long time, then sighed heavily and turned toward the window. You're just like your brother, always chasing truth, no matter the cost. Her heart clenched. So it was you. He didn't deny it. Your brother found out the base was being used to move illegal weapons through private contractors. He threatened to report it. I was ordered to stop him. I didn't mean for the explosion to happen. I just wanted him silenced. But he went back in, and the fire spread too fast. Liana's breath caught. Her chest felt like it was collapsing from the inside. You murdered him. I followed orders, Harris said quietly, his voice hollow. You think the system is clean? You're part of it now. If you go public, you'll be destroyed too. She stared at him, at the man who'd been her brother's friend, her ally. Then I'll burn with it. Before he could react, she pressed the intercom button on her desk. Base security. This is Admiral Raines. Effective immediately, Colonel Harris is under arrest for treason and the murder of Captain Ethan Raines. The doors burst open moments later. Armed guards stormed in. Harris's face twisted in fury. You don't know what you've done. They'll come for you next. She met his eyes coldly. Let them. As he was dragged away, the thunder roared above them, loud, furious, cleansing. Liana sank into her chair, tears slipping down her cheeks for the first time in years. Her brother's ghost could finally rest. The truth, no matter how painful, had been set free. Outside, The storm began to fade Dot, and for the first time since she'd arrived, the sun broke through the clouds over Camp Haven. A week later, the base stood renewed. Discipline had returned, and so had respect. The soldiers who once laughed at her now saluted her with genuine pride. Dot at the memorial wall. Admiral Raines placed her brother's locket beneath his nameplate. "You can rest now, Ethan," she whispered. "Your fight is over. Mine isn't." She turned toward the open field where new recruits were training, strong, focused, disciplined. Her eyes softened. A base without respect is just a battlefield waiting to happen. Not again. Not under my command. Then she walked away, the rising sun casting a golden glow on her uniform, the symbol of both her pain and her purpose. Thank you for staying till the end. These stories are more than just words. They're moments we all share in some way. If it resonated with you, give it a like, maybe share it forward, and tell me how it made you feel. I love connecting with you guys.